Hello everyone, good evening. Hope I'm audible to each one of you. Thank you so much for taking out the time for this 90 minutes webinar. I'm sure we will definitely get the outcome of this 90-minute webinar, which should be followed with question and answer. Whatever your questions will be, you keep your questions ready with you, so that Navajyoti can answer your questions once he will complete his uh, session. The session would be of 60 to 70 minutes, followed with 20 minutes of question and answer. And if any question will be pending, we will be happy to answer your questions over the email as well. My name is Dinesh Gupta. I'm host of your today's session. We have Navajyoti with us, who is highly experienced consultant and subject matter expert, not only in the space of generative AI, but in the space of other technologies like you know, .NET, Python, Angular, React, Azure, and etc. He's Microsoft certified trainer, and he's also certified on the cloud architect as well. He's playing a role as a practice head in one of the organization, and we have requested him to really uh, cascade his knowledge among the crowd, so that the people can able to really understand the strength of generative AI. And within this 90 minutes, right, I'm sure you will be benefited about the features of generative AI and how generative AI can really change our life and help our productivity, right? He is consulting, right, in many organizations, as well as he's also delivering the training in the big companies like Microsoft, Infosys, TCS, Accenture, Cognizant, L&T, and etc. So I'm not taking your much time opening up this forum to Navajyoti to get it start immediately, so that we can utilize full of the time. Over to you, Navajyoti.
Thank you, Dinesh, for your brief introductions about me. So let's get started. I pull up my PPT. So hope you can see my PPT and hope everybody can hear me.
Yes, we can.
All right, thank you. All right, thank you for the acknowledgement. So as
Navajyoti,
you
is
can,
it possible to switch on your camera? I
yeah,
mean,
sure.
I'm sure it would be a kind of interactive conversation as well. Yes.
Can you see me? Just a minute.
Fantastic. Thank you so much
Yeah,
to
sure.
accommodating our
Yeah,
request.
sure. Yeah.
Go ahead, please.
Okay, so coming back to my presentation, as you can see, today's topic is generative AI. Now, I have identified a few points from the agenda. So what we are going to discuss today. So we'll straight jump into introduction to the generative AI and their respective use cases. That's number one. Then we'll understand what is the backbone of the generative AI, then getting into the LLM, that is all about large language models, and of course, the applications and use cases around the LLM. And then one of the most important areas from the generative AI called prompt engineering. So we are going to see a quick introduction from that prompt engineering also. Now, getting into the first one, introduction to the generative AI. Now, we must understand and connect the dots before we get into the generative AI, because we have started long back in the field of artificial intelligence implementing in various domain. Like it has started sometime in 1950s, what we call as a role-based system. This would be a first phase of artificial intelligence development. It typically addresses the creation of rule-based system in which the expert will encode their knowledge into a set of rules for computer to follow. Then getting into the era of machine learning from 1960 to 1990. And this is where the actual innovations in the field of artificial intelligence has happened. So in this field, we have come up with the different underlying concept and the technology, and we basically go up to the machines with the data, and machines start learning from the data, and machines are capable of doing predictions based on their learning from the existing data or a historic data. They can do predictions, they can do classifications, right? So they can help us in the decision making in our business. So this is all about driven by your application and system. Then getting into the deep learning in the era of advanced artificial intelligence implementation. Sometimes the machine learning was limited with their capability to perform the task what the end user was asking at that point in time. And most of the task is being resolved by getting into advanced implementation of the machine learning, what we call deep learning. So it means if you have to learn from the huge amount of data, then subsequently you can do the predictions or the classifications or clustering or helping in the decision making process within an organizations within a business. So deep learning become one of the most important subject, the areas in the field of artificial intelligence. And today we are talking about the generative AI, right? But yes, the artificial intelligence is a subject or an implementation area. It is not just begin today. So it was kind of introduced long back, but yes, they have evolved with the different kind of technology and the tools and the concept and try to solve a different problem from the business and the domain uh, what we got so far before we get into the generative AI. Now we must understand like since from the role-based system to the deep learning, the mainly those artificial intelligence system was kind of representing a decision making process or representing a predictions making process or maybe doing some kind of classifications between the objects. So the system can tell us under which class that object belongs to. System can tell us how many car to be manufactured by a particular car manufacturing company for a particular financial year. So these are basically, without taking human help, the system can do this. So it is basically you are going to infuse the human capability to an application. That's how the AI has come into the picture. So most of the job from the human is being offloaded to the application today with the help of machine learning, with the help of deep learning, because these are the underlying implementations to see that kind of realities from today's modern application. But what exactly the generative AI, the field of artificial intelligence, what we are going to explore today, how the generative AI is different from the traditional one. Now, by definition, the generative AI says it can create new content based on what you have asked. So if I ask the artificial intelligence to write a story for me, so generative AI can write a story for me. If I ask generative AI to write an application, write a blogs, write a poem for me, but while I'm asking to write this kind of uh, or maybe generate this kind of content, so I need to be very specific how exactly the content to be created by the generative AI. So it is essentially coming back to the prompt that you are going to write, the questions that you are going to ask to the generative AI. So based on that, generative AI can generate the content for you. But while the generative AI can create content for you, those content the generative AI is going to create for you would be original. You can't find anywhere else. The content can be in a form of the text, the content can be in a form of image, content can be in a form of videos, content can be in form of music. So essentially what we are saying that right from those days where the artificial intelligence was used to predict, used to kind of classify, used to do some kind of clustering. Clustering means like grouping. So the machines can identify the property of the similar kind of an object and they can be grouped together without taking human help. But today the AI is doing different things. It's called generative AI. So we must understand the fundamental difference between the traditional AI and the generative AI. So generative AI is responsible for generating the new content, creating new content. As I said, content can be in a form of text or an image or a videos, but how you want the content to be created, that depends what kind of prompt that you would be writing in front of the generative AI. So that is what the core concept of the generative AI. So it means there would be a lot of use cases around the generative AI. If somebody wants to do the translations from one language to another language, the generative AI can be used. Someone wants to create a summary of an articles, the generative AI can use. Eventually, they have to write a new content as a summary from the existing article. In fact, the generative AI can give you the format also while they would be generating the content for you, saying that I want the generated content would be in a form of JSON. I want the generated content to be form of in a tabular format. So not only generating a content, so we can also control the response type, the format of the response, the format of the generated content also. Now, generative AI also can be used to learn on a particular subject. Like suppose you want you want to know something about calculus from a mathematics. So you can go and ask generative AI by setting a problem statement, what exactly that you want to know from the field of calculus in mathematics or in science or in medicine or in manufacturing or in banking. So you can go and ask the questions like in a form of prompt, and generative AI is responsible for giving content based on your prompt. That is the bottom line, and that is how generative AI is different from the traditional AI, artificial intelligence, what we are discussing at this moment. But this is fine. Ones can go and write their prompt to get the response, but we need to go beyond just getting a response. Now we must understand what is the technology or what are the core system behind the generative AI who can create content for us. And that's how, so we will be getting into the world of large language model. So first we started talking about the definition of the generative AI, how generative AI is different from traditional AI, and what generative AI is capable at this moment. So right, generative AI is capable of creating video also. creating image also by just writing a prompt. Suppose I am writing a prompt, so create a image of a dog flying on the blue sky. So that is your prompt. That is your ask, but generative AI is going to go and create precisely what you have asked. Create the image of a dog with all that you have asked along with that particular image. Right, the concept goes the same, concept would be the same. It is not something different from one to another, but eventually, as I said, the bottom line is one. So generative AI is responsible for creating new original content based on the prompt that you have given. Now, as I said, what goes behind the generative AI who can perform the task of creating the new content? And that's how we encounter, that's how we have to go and understand something to do with the LLM. Now, when you talk about the model, so model is not something new terminology that we are discussing today, because from the days of machine learning and deep learning, we have been talking about the model. So model is basically an artifact. So who can predict, who can classify, who can, yeah, do the clustering, who can help us in terms of decision making, because those model was created out of the data learned by the algorithms. So machine learning has the algorithms. Through the algorithms, they try and learn from the historic or real-time data by identifying the relations among the data, by identifying the trends of the data, by identifying the patterns from that data, because these are the different way of learning from the existing data by machine learning algorithms. Now, similarly, today in generative AI also, the model that I'm talking about, who basically responsible for creating new content, it's all about deep learning model. So these are deep learning model, and those model was created by training the huge amount of data. That data may be collected from the website, data may be collected from the PDF, data may be collected from the database, or maybe documents, or maybe Wikipedias. So all source of data is being given to the model and ask model to learn from those data. And this model eventually got trained to generate the new content, what based on what they have learned at the time of training while the model was created. Now, there are few important kind of, as I said, this model are slightly different from the traditional model, because this model is more into generating a word, or maybe generating a sentence, or generating a paragraphs, or generating an entire page of a document. So this model are slightly different from the traditional model. So there are some underlying concept like transformers and uh, the few other types of algorithm in the model. They basically responsible, or they are responsible for generating the content what we are discussing at this moment. Now, since it is just an overview, just to overview session, so to give an idea, so people started talking about today something, every now and then they talk about GPT, which is called generative, the pre-trained transformer. As I said, transformer is a type of model who can create new content, who can create new words, new sentence, and new paragraphs, and new documents, based on the prompt, what you have asked for. So based on the transformer model, different vendors has come up with their own LLMs, that is large language model. Why it is called large language model? Because because this model is being trained on, as I said, the huge amount of data. And those data was taken from different sources, including the Wikipedia and your the web pages and other sources. So you can see the most relevant LLM today people are used like GPT-3, GPT-4, and GPT-4o, which is developed by OpenAI. So OpenAI is an independent organization, and you know the one of the most popular application from the OpenAI is called ChatGPT, and that ChatGPT is being used extensively today by the end user. And but behind this application, they use those large language model who actually capable of creating new content based on the prompt that you have given to those LLM. So generative AI is just an underlying concept, but who does the actual job on behalf of generative AI? These are called machine learning and deep learning model, as we discussed at this moment. And what is model? The model is a kind of artifacts that is being created based on the training on the huge corpus of data. So those model can learn from the data, and subsequently they should be able to respond to the user queries, the user prompt, the based on what they have learned during the training. Now, GPT-4 is one of the most popular LLM at this moment. The people are using. It talks about 175 billion parameters. So how robust that LLM could be, you can imagine. So it means GPT-4 can do almost uh, everything in terms of generating a content. So we are going to look at the few example, in fact, few kind of demo, then you will get to know what I'm talking about. Now, apart from this GPT model, what we are talking about, there are different vendors and organizations who started talking about LLM, who started creating and developing LLMs. So I'm just bringing a list in a tabular format in front of you, that you will get some kind of ideas like, okay, the OpenAI is on the top of the list, then Google, and then we'll go into some kind of Facebook and the Meta, and then a few more vendors who have started deploying or started making available those models, the LLM models that we can use from our applications to generate the new content. But yes, we need to go into the deep understanding of this model and their capability, in what context, which model would be appropriate, in what domain, which model would be appropriate. Then you will be able to figure out. But in general, these are the model that we can use behind my application. I can take this model, deploy it in my own ecosystem, or I can make a direct call to those a model with the help of API from my application. So we start developing our application's user interface through which we can accept the prompt from the end user, and eventually making a call to the LLM and get the response back into your UI. Now, along with this LLM, what we are talking about, this is just a list. As I said, you need to figure out, you need to pick one and try and understand how this LLM would be relevant to your use cases, your problem statement. So what this LLM can do, what limitations that LLM can have in my context, then we have to figure them out. But all the LLM that I'm talking about, the core concept, the core implementations is all about generating new content. And most interesting, like the people who are joining today may be coming from a development background. For them, it is a good news because you guys can create your code with the help of generative AI. So you just need to write a prompt. Your generative AI is going to write the entire code for you. Suppose you are a Python developer, so you want a help to help from the generative AI to write a code on a particular given or a context. So you can just go and write a narrative and asking the generative AI to write a code or generate a code for your problem statement. It takes few seconds to give you the codes. So you might have struggled to write the code, that is possibly you can go up to the generative AI to get the solutions right away. So you can think out of the box sometime, what generative AI can produce or generative AI can kind of do for us to enhance the productivities in everyday's life. It is not about for the developer that I'm talking about, the people who are mainly content creators, writing blogs, right? So writing some kind of articles and so on and so forth. So how uh, those people would be benefited by using a generative AI going forwards. You'll be able to anticipate when you'll be getting into the world of the Gen AI and their respective implementation going forward. Now, quickly, I will run through few things. We do not need to get into the detail of those, like LLM parameters. The more parameters that you use to create that model would be more robust. So in terms of predictabilities, in terms of accuracies, that model is going to give us, all right? So this is something would be based on the parameters. The parameters means you would be setting number of parameters while the machine learning or deep learning will go and start learn from the data. So you will be given an additional instruction how the algorithm will go and learn from the data to make your model more robust and that can maintain the performance and the accuracies while we'll be using them from our application. So parameter is another underlying concept that will come along with the large language model. But at this moment, we just understand we don't need to understand what parameter by going one or two, because we have mentioned 175 billion parameter is used to train GPT-4 model. So we need to understand the neural network from the deep learning, how the data would be bypassing to a multiple neural networks. And every neural network have their respective parameter to learn from the data until they will be ready to generate the new content, based on the learning of the raw data that has given to the parameters out there. Okay, so these are a few things, as I said, if you want to kind of unbox how the parameters essentially being used in context of LLM. So suppose I have a text, the sun will, and I need to generate the next word from the first sentence, like the sun will. So definitely the second, the following word would be sign as likely to the next word. So your LLM can produce what would be the next word without losing the context. They will try and maintain the context all over again, that it will only get me the word which is relevant to where we have started. If I started with something like once upon a time, so LLM understand that I'm about to write a story, and they will write a story for us with the prompt that we have given to the LLM. It's pretty interesting to interact with the LLM, which is a kind of backbone of the generative AI, what we are discussing. But there are some technical understanding like embeddings and hidden layers and output layer from the deep learning from the neural network, what I have been talking about, because this is how the neural network is responsible for learning from the data and subsequently that neural network. So one type of network that we talk about, the transformer one, who's supposed to create the new content in a form of the text, in a form of image, and in a form of the videos, what we have been discussing. But net, like when you say there are a lot many concepts, that you need to learn, because if you have to develop your system parallelly, uh, that need to address your own problem by using generative AI, by using LLM. But otherwise, from the end user point of view, so we do not need to understand all of the internal architecture or internal implementation, as long as we can get our job done by just writing an effective prompt in front of the LLM in the subject of generative AI. But along with those robustness, what we are talking about, there are a couple of challenges also with LLM at this moment. The number one challenges are they are static. Like, so if the LLM was created sometime in 2023 November's, from 2000 November's 2023 November to till today, the June 2024. So those informations which is being added in the different domain or a subject is not known to the LLM, because that LLM was created that point in time. So what was the information available at that point in time, LLM is aware about it. But if the new informations come from the same domain or same subject, the LLM is not aware of those. So sometimes the LLM will come back and tell you that according to my knowledge from the year 2023 November's, this is what I know based on what you have asked. So that is the first problem, because we have to make the LLM, because it is not possible that we can create LLM every now and then, because it is pretty robust process, because it is the learning the LLM does. It is not completed in minutes or an hours, in a days. It can go up to months and months when the LLM is going to, or LLM is going to be created. And when the LLM will start learning from the data, it's really take long time. So it's not the job of kind of overnight that today we want to do, tomorrow you want to produce. That is not possible. Now, another important aspect, I mean, like challenges with the LLM, they may not be a very uh, keen, or maybe they may not be aware of the latest update that has happened in a particular domain, like from what has happened in manufacturing, what has happened in the medicine, what has happened in healthcare, and what has happened in retail. So they may not be knowing, because they are very specific to a domain, because those domain specific, like for example, if employee wants to ask a generative AI about their uh, the leave the facilities within an organization, so typical LLM won't be able to answer these queries, because uh, the LLM is not given access to the internal document of the organizations, the employee, the HR documents of that particular organization. So that's why it is, I'm just giving an example that you can anticipate what I'm talking about. So LLM may not be aware of a specific informations from a particular domain and from a particular organization, because the LLM does not have access to those information while LLM was trained, because it was trained on a public uh, informations, the content which was publicly available. So that is another kind of challenge at this moment. And then getting into this the field of LLM, how the LLM is going to learn from the data. It's a kind of black boxes. So we cannot kind of get inside out. So what kind of inner working inside the neural network is happening in order to create a new contents? So that become a black box to the end user, until you are a kind of data scientist or an ML engineers to know about in and out of the algorithms and the neural networks, while they will go and create. a content based on the prompt. Now, apart from that, as I said, this is pretty costly because the training on a huge amount of data will take time, not only take time, but you need the resources also, underlying infrastructure. So underlying infrastructure, as I said, you need a resource to train like CPU or a storage or a memories or a physical infrastructure for that compute intensive task, the training repeatedly I'm talking about, because your algorithms need to learn from the data, and that's how we call as a training the model. And eventually model will come out of that particular process and model would be ready to generate the new content. So this process is not easy. This process is not simple. As I said, this process goes on and on, hours after hours, days after days, and eventually we got that LLM and ready to predict or ready to create new content by using this LLM. But we can always go and find solutions around those challenges. Now, two solutions primarily in the field of large language model we get. One is called fine tuning, other is called data grounding, which is also called as a retrieval augmented generations, RAG. Because typically all the language model that we talked about, large language model we talked about, is pre-trained. Because I have given a reference that GPT-4 was introduced sometime in November 2023. GPT-4o from the OpenAI has recently introduced just last month. So now, if I go by the GPT-4, which was kind of created sometime in 2023, and that time that LLM is a for today, that LLM would be a pre-training model, because this model can only talk. This model can only create the content based on what is being given to the model from that point in time. So then we need to come up with the solutions to infuse the latest informations to an existing LLM. And that's how the fine tuning will come into the picture. So we can fine tune the base model that we got from the OpenAI or from the Google or from Microsoft or from Anthropic or maybe from Meta's. So we can take those models and we can do the fine tuning with our own data. So it means we need to retrain the existing model by pumping my latest data, my own data. That's all about fine tuning. So there is a possibility of making the LLM understand about the new content or new resources or new informations by doing fine tuning. And sometimes the fine tuning become more expensive because it is all over going and training the model once again. But it is not like training the LLM the originally trained. It would be only training with the latest data on top of what we got from the base model. So it will not take so much time like your base model got uh, the time to create them. But as I said, to address the concern about, as it says that it is expensive, then we can go back and talk about the another solutions called RAG. As I said, RAG stand for retrieval augmented generations. So without fine tuning, without recreating a model, so we can keep the latest data in a database. These are database, today's modern database called vector database, where we can keep our data. So my prompt will go and fetch the data from the vector database and go back to the LLM and consider the data that is being retrieved from the vector database, which was the latest data, while the LLM will go and create a response to the end user. So it means this is the another way of kind of reducing the model cap, reducing what you call the hallucinations the model supposed to give you. Hallucination is a kind of concern about the LLM if they don't know So the LLM try to give some kind of information. So it could be treated as a fake information, but to eliminate that kind of situation, so we can do the fine tuning as well as data grounding, what we are discussing. So it means you can always go and infuse the latest data to the LLM model. So once by recreating the model and another by just feeding the data without recreating or without retraining our existing model. But yes, and the rest is all about the practice, like how practically we do the implementation of these two, the fine tuning and data grounding, that need to be looked at. But at this moment, to beginning, to start with, or maybe to understand the in and out of the LLM, what we are talking about, and what kind of the probable challenges that you are going to face and how you are going to overcome the challenges from the large language model, what we are discussing. So net to the concluded, to the conclusions that I can make, that the LLM may be static because they may have a cutout time when they were created, but still we can produce the latest data in front of the LLM as a fine tuning or as a data grounding to consider those new informations in response while the LLM is going to produce. So when you talk about the LLM, which is the backbone of the generative AI, and as I said before, also in the list, my previous list, I have created a table, and you saw from that tables the list of LLM has come from the different vendors. The same thing, like it started sometime in 2019 extensively until today. The vendors are adding the new model into the catalog every now and then. So as a generative AI consumer, so I need to go back and step into those model and see the specification of those model and how this model can help us in order to generate content based on my use cases and problem statement, through which we can go and solve the problem in a day-to-day basis what we do, or we can enhance the productivity of the people at work or at home by using this model from the generative AI. So this is the core concept, like I'm talking about, this is the core concept. Now we need to go back and see that how this generative AI can be used, like, or how what we have been discussing and how we can see in action. So we can go back to those applications, LLM-based applications. The number one is the Chat GPTs, then DAL-E, Sora, Google Gemini's, Stable Diffusions, Midjourney, Jasper AI, Meta AI. These are the known platform or tools and applications today who basically talks about, who basically implement LLM behind these applications to create new content based on the user prompt. So I'm going to go and quickly walk you through, then you will get an idea of what I have been talking about, right? Because I talk about two things. One, the generative AI is a concept and how it is different from the traditional AI. That's number one. Number two, what are the backbone of the generative AI? Then we talk about LLM, bit of machine learning and deep learning. We talk about the model, and this model is responsible for generating new content. But the question is that who has created this model, how they have created the model, and that is we need to go into a deep understanding of the deep learning and the machine learning, knowing different terminologies like algorithms, data set, right, the evaluations, metrics, and so on and so forth, the features engineering. supervised machine learning, unsupervised machine learning, reinforcement machine learning. So these are the underlying concept that we need to learn if you really go into the deep understanding of those models. Because tomorrow, if I have to go and create my own model for my use cases, my domain, then we need to know those terminology. In fact, you need to know the inner working of those technologies and the concept. But that is not the objective of this today's sessions. The today's session is as a new technology, the era of the artificial intelligence. So what we can expect, what we can get out of this technology, and by using different tools and platforms that is having insight in front of us today. So that's how I will go and give you a quick demo. Then you will get a feel about what I'm talking about, what I'm discussing, and what I'm explaining. So hope you are before I go into a demos. And you can keep your questions if you have at the end that you can post your question through Teams. So I'll be able to answer that because last 20 minutes I'll be giving you questions to be asked. But yes, so I'm just going point by point, the 2 point that I have discussed. On that basis, I'm going into the demo that you'll be able to relate or be able to connect the dot. So it is not just talking. So how we can see in implementation by just using the ready-made tools and applications in order to generate the new content. So let me take you to my uh, the workstation. So here I go, I'll go to a browser and I go to openai.com. So I can see this is the GPT that we have been talking about multiple times in my discussion because OpenAI is, you can look into the company's profiles of who this OpenAI is. So you can by going into the openai.com. But these are the kind of um, the product that you have. So GPT-4 that I was talking about, the Sora I was talking about, DAL-E I was talking about, right? So you need to go and take a look. So what kind of works the OpenAI is being doing in the field of GPT, DALL-E, and Sora. And that is something DAL-E is a model who can generate image. The Sora is a model who can generate your videos. The GPT is most used model, the LLM, who can generate the new content. But we need to go into an application. Like if I go to a kind of product, so I go to the one of the application here, the Chat GPT, the first application from my list. So I logged in. I can see my model. I can pick up one of this model like 3.5, GPT-4 and GPT. So this is the latest one, 4.0, because this model is a multi-model model because this model understands text as well as the image also. Okay, so that we can upload an image to the model and asking to explain that particular image. Or I can write a text, means the prompt to get the response. Now, the what kind of prompt that I'm going to go and write. So as I said, I will go by the use cases, couple of them, so you can basically understand that. So suppose I would go with the first use case by to make you understand. So I was talking about LLM use cases, or we can say Gen AI. So one of the job the Gen AI can do the translation. Like, how do I test this? So if I'm writing a prompt, something like this, okay, so I can go up to there and I can say, this is the prompt that I'm writing. So translate when is the breakfast served to Spanish. So this is the prompt that I'm writing in front of my generative AI. And this is what we got, right? So this is where it is going in. So this is what I get in a voice, in fact, so this is, I can copy, I can regenerate this also. If I'm not satisfied with that, I can write another prompt like this. The one of the, uh, so here is another prompt that I would like to give to the generative AI, the model. This is what we get this. You can see the prompt and you can see the response also. So we can go on and we can see that the another one that we can talk about the, I'm not going to go after the all the use cases, but one of the few important use cases that I'm talking about from the generative AI. The another one is the summarization. So suppose I do have an article, I can put the article and ask generative AI to do the summary of this article. But or I can go to some kind of Wikipedia page. Like if I go to this Wikipedia page, it's talking about Boeing 747. So let me go and see that. Yeah, so this is the Wikipedia page who talks about the Boeing 747. But I can go back to the GPT and give this the prompt and saying, sorry. So the prompt was something like summarize the article at. So I just go and give that prompt. So I'll be given the summary by going into this particular one. So you can see the beautifully right, and you can go into the page also. And not only at that, and your generative AI can retain the conversational context because it's all about conversational AI. It is all about chat applications that we are doing. So you can say use bulleted list to summarize the article and no more than 5 bullets. So clear instruction that is being given, what you need. But I don't need to go and talk about explicitly what we have been discussing so far. I have been discussing about the Boeing 747. So whatever the summary that we're supposed to get out of this, I'm saying I'm formatting that by with a clear instruction. So I don't need to go back and tell because they can retain the conversational context on what context we are basically discussing with the generative AI, the LLM behind the generative AI. So you can see that. So this time the format is different. In fact, you can keep going and keep extending your need. And this time you are writing something more to it, and also comparison with Airbus A380. So this is something that we said while we are talking about Boeing 747, and I'm also going and talking about, let us compare with Airbus A380. Now you can see that all the informations that you are looking for, it is just tip of your fingers. Like, you can just write your prompt, you can make your make those contents available right in front of you. You can write story, you can write your blogs on a particular topics. Yeah, so you can write technical articles, you can write the articles from a particular subject and so on and so forth. Now, the another one also, suppose you want to learn something using a GPT from the education point of view also, like suppose you want to do some kind of researching. So you can also do something, some kind of the task related to doing some kind of research. Like, for example, I would like to write a prompt saying that what's the population of each country in Europe, because I want to do some kind of research on that subject. So I just go back and give that prompt. So this is what we got right there. Right. So I can go and extend this. So please format is in a table and order it from the largest to a smallest one. So what I was talking about, it depends on the prompt, how you want the LLM to be respond to your the prompt, because that can be dictate, that can be clearly defined how exactly that you want. Right. So this is what we get to see right there. So you can download, so you can make it bigger, what we see out there like this. Okay, so we can go on and on in this context, what we are talking about. Sorry, I mean, like, if I go back. Yes, so now in the same context, I can add one more thing here. So because I'm doing research, so I would like to know more about this. Add also population growth in percentage in the last 5 years. So here we go. So it's kind of, what you want, because you want to dig into the detail of this particular topic that we are discussing with generative AI. So generative AI is trying to bring me the informations that was known to the LLM, because somebody has trained the LLM, like human is being trained to answer to a particular queries. The human can learn from a book, or human can learn by attending a training. Some same thing, it goes to the language model also, because language model also being used to learn from those the data, because on that basis now the language model is able to give me uh, the details or something like that. So we can add more to it, like format the data as the CSV. So this is where we go and comma separated values. See, because I do not need to start the conversation from the beginning, because the LLM understand what is the context of the conversation. So this is something that we can see. So you can go and download the files, and this is the file that we get in Excel. So I download this file, and this is what we get in the. So what else that can be done? You can do a kind of planning also from the generative AI. So if you want to visit a particular place, so you can also take help from the generative AI. Like, for example, you can say something like this: plan a 2 day trip to Greece, starting and ending in Athens. So I'll go and this one. So you can get your complete itineraries detail. Now, the most interesting part of this LLM with generative AI, because they use natural language. The natural language means, suppose, like how I can talk to my colleagues. So you can say, you know what, make it 3 days. So your LLM understand, the generative AI understand more closer to the human language that is being used rather than use some grammatically correct English. You should be able to kind of write the English typically you use to communicate or to do the conversation with your colleagues or with your friend. And that is all about NLP's natural processing language, the one of the core, the capability of this a model that what we are discussing. So you can just go and start talking to this. And it is not only that I need to communicate with this LLM using the English language. You can always write your own language, own native language. As we see on the top, they understand the multiple languages. You can translate back into the English. And not only that, you can speak in a particular language, you can type in a particular language. So generative AI will be able to translate to the appropriate language while they will be responding to your queries. So you can go on and on. So you can use the use cases for copywriting. You can also go and use for the developer point of views, working with, suppose, the code, the last one that I'm going to talk about, the working with the code. So I can just go and write some kind of the prompt here. And this is the prompt that I'm talking about. So here is a write a functions in C sharp that goes through a list of book that includes the rating for each book and calculate the average rating. So this is something, the statement or maybe kind of prompt that I'm writing. So this is what I can go and give it to. So let's see. This is where we get the code. So it is amazing, like, so it is one of the most powerful artificial intelligence, what we are talking about. So you can imagine what you want and you should be able to get on. So not only that, you can just go and say, okay, add documentations to this code that the people can read. And sorry, people can basically go and read what is being generated by uh, the GPT, what we are using. So you can see the documentations. So the people who are in the field of development. So it is not only just one language. So I can go and change this also. Instead of kind of the C sharp, I can just make it some changes. I can say Python. And we could have give directly a prompt, said write the above code in Python also, then you can get this code in Python. The people who are familiar with the Python language, they can anticipate what is being kind of generated by this GPT model. So we can go on and on kind of things. You can use generative AI for the proofreadings, or you can use generative AI for generating sample data or something like this. So I can just go and say some kind of sample data, the last one. I can just go and say here. So create a list of 10 movies with the following details: movie names, year released. Uh, year released and the length and the box office performance in the format of the list as a JSON array. So let us go and see this prompt. So since we are going with these things, you can see this is the JSON array that is being created. So you can see all the list of the movies along with the release date and the length and other details what we have asked for. So I can make use of this particular JSON from my application to put inside my database and to test my applications against those uh, data. If I want to kind of test my applications, if I do not have the data, I can go up to the generative AI to create a data and quickly uh, do this. In fact, I can go and more uh, add more to it. Like, for example, I can say add director name also. So because as I said, they will not lose the context in what context we have been doing the conversations with the generative AI. So you can see the director name also now popping in the list. All right. So that is what you can format in XML. You can format your own format also. You can go and give it those details in the prompt, how you want your LLM to be. So, and this is all about your text. Now, what about the image that I talked about? Okay, so, and as I say that, the writing prompt, that is a art. It is not a particular a type of the engineering associated with writing a prompt. So how effectively you can write your prompt, and that is also equally important to get appropriate response from your uh, LLM, from your generative AI. So that is another subject altogether I was talking about. So what is prompt engineering? The prompt engineering is going to uh, give you some tricks and the tips while you will be writing the prompt, because you can make your prompt more effective to get the complete new response from the LLM, because you have to have the clarity in your mind what exactly that you want from the LLM, and that depends on how effective your prompt is. So you can write a very simple prompt and you can write a prompt with the clarity what you want. You can also include the response format along with the prompt, all those things. So you can give example how LLM should respond, by giving couple of examples. It is also possible by setting a context to the LLM, right? That, okay, you are a customer support for an Xbox. You are supposed to answer everything related to the Xbox. So you can create some kind of system message before we do the conversations with an LLM to kind of channelize, to create a context for an LLM, that LLM can be uh, aligned with the kind of questions that is going to be responded by the LLM by setting a context. So there are different way of making a prompt more effective, and that's how the prompt engineering will come into the picture. So lastly, that I talked about the image also, because I said just create an image, or maybe create an image of a dog flying in the blue sky. That is my imagination. So I said the generative AI is responsible for creating new content. So what I would like to create, because this is mainly for the content creators. So we have been creating content in a form of text, but the GPT-4o is a multi-model. They understand more than one, the format of the data to deal with. So here I'm going with, so image, that I want an image to be created by my LLM based on the prompt that I'm writing. So it is your narratives that you are giving to the LLM, or your specifications that you are giving it to the LLM. So you're supposed to get the response right there. So here is the image of a dog flying joyfully in the blue sky. If you need any adjustment or further image, feel free to let me know, because you have to maybe write more elaborative prompt. All right. So you may need to say that the cloudy sky or something like that, so you can additionally input the few more stuff into the existing prompt. So like this, if I go back to the open AI, so we have the product, like one of the product is what we call it's as the another, the last one that I'm going to talk about is your maybe going with the video things. So here I go with this. If I go to the another model called create the video from the text, and this is the Sora, what I was discussing at this moment. Now you can take a look, and this is the prompt that is being written. A stylish woman walked down in the Tokyo street filled with the warm glowing neons and animated city Sangaze, and she wear a black leather jacket, a long red dresses, and the black boots. Carries a black purse, and she wear a sunglass and the red lipsticks. Everything in detail, and this is what we get. And this is the video created by the model called Sora. So you can create text, you can create image, you can create the videos. So as long as you start talking about creating content, so you can see the the power of the generative AI, the power of the large language model, what we are discussing. But as I said, we need to go and figure out those the model that would be aligned to what you need, basically, what basically you are looking for. So it's pretty interesting. Is a subject really vast. It was just to get you on board to the generative AI. I hope that you got a kind of insight to the generative AI and their respective capabilities in the different field in order to generate new content. So we can go on and on. There are a couple of more. Uh, so this is what we have. You can see that what is being written as a prompt, and eventually you get this the videos. So you can check them out. All right. So with that, uh, I am closing today's one. So I'll be keeping 10 minutes for you to, if you have any questions, any discussion that you want to have with me, you can definitely go into uh, the team and you can start prompting your questions. So I would like to thank everyone for joining this today's the webinar. Hope you got an insightful about the generative AI so far, but we are a long way to go in this field of generative AI, how you can develop your own application, which is aligned with your own problem statements, aligned with your own domain, that you will be able to bring solutions to your customers for yourself in the respective fields. Thank you once again. Over to Dinesh, if you are there.
Thank you so much, Navajyoti, for such a wonderful session. So now we are opening up this forum to our audiences. So few of the people have written, some questions. I would urge each one of them to, feel free and mute yourself and ask the questions.
Okay,
We have
so I
Rajiv
got the
Kumar.
question. Yeah, I got a questions from yeah, Rajiv, the first one, if I can read that. Yes. What are the free generative AI tool available today for a regular on non-enterprise user? Yes, of course, you can make use of chat GPTs. What I have mentioned in my uh, the demos. So that is one. You can go to the Meta AI also from the Facebook. You can go to the Google Gemini also. So you just need to see a kind of subscription model, because I do have my premium subscription for the uh, Chat GPT, because I have the subscription of GPT Plus that was approximately a 20 to $25 per month that I need to pay for using the latest model. That is one. So what are the current ongoing enhancement in LLM? So current ongoing and health enhancement in the LLM is try to create more multi-model and try to infuse domain specific LLM. Like people wanted to know from what is happening in healthcare. So what is the latest development that has happened into the healthcare? The two things, multi-model means one model who can operate multiple data format. I don't need to use a two different model, one for text and one for image or one for videos. Okay, so multi-model is one, and eliminating hallucinations. Hallucinations like how we are going to remove the fake response that LLM can give you, since the LLM do not know what you are asking. So these are the kind of things happening in the field of LLM at this moment. How do you secure the confidential informations in the era of generative AI? Because of course, as I said, you can keep the data with you, with your own database. Like I talk about the solutions called RAG, retrieval augmented generations. So you do not have to pump your data to the base model. So you can keep your information with you. So prompt will go and fetch the data from you, and then go to the LLM and then create a response from you. But yes, for the security purpose, you need to look into the platform like Microsoft Cloud or AWS Cloud or GCP Cloud. So a lot of services is being made available from the cloud to use the generative AI, who actually enhance the securities and other enterprise the norms that you would like to incorporate while you are going to use the generative AI in a day-to-day basis. That is for Razib. What the three questions that I can see.
Yeah. Thank you,
The,
Nabajyoti.
yeah. The next one is, yeah, Atul, what LLM will be suited for customizing with the proprietary data leveraging generative AI LangChain? Yeah, of course, the LangChain is a kind or of course, the Hugging Face. So what you are talking about, yes, LangChain is a runtime. And now, sometimes what we see, the generative AI may not be so pretty straightforward. So generative AI application need to reuse some kind of templates. The templates in the sense like how the customer is going to ask the question. So we can give a template to them. So it's a kind of creating a framework around the generative AI in order to do all kind of customizations that you want to do from your applications by using a runtime like LangChain or semantic kernel from open source, which is driven by Microsoft, or maybe the model coming from the Hugging Face with the help of LangChains. You can make a call to the Hugging Face model using APIs. Now, what are the kind of contextual informations that you want to retain in your application? So you can do all kind of stuff by using, from the developer point of view that I'm talking about, by using runtime like LangChain. So LangChain is going to give you the framework to develop an end-to-end solutions in the generative AI for your own domain. And it will always talk about the data privacy also, like working with vector database where you can store data in a form of vectors, because all the LLM understand data in a form of numbers, which is basically representation of the vectors one. So collectively, net, what you are asking, Atul, is a kind of the framework, or you can say is a kind of the runtime the developer is going to use to integrate many things together to write a complete or to develop a complete applications in the field of generative AI. That is goes to Atul. Dinesh Gupta questions can also be asked directly after. Okay, so Dinesh, yeah, that's fine. How generative AI can help to extract a few specific detail from the log PDF Word document? Yes, of course. Like, so generative AI can read data from the Word or any kind of format, because all the format would be represented as a vectors, as I said, by storing them in a vector database. Is there any use cases available online for this? Yes, the use cases, as I talk about the solution, not the use cases. The retrieval augmented generations. If you go and see what is RAG solutions in context of generative AI, they're all about PDF and the Word documents to extract informations by the LLM in order to give the contextual answers from your specific domain. Giant is how easy, complex it would be to put some compliance hygiene into the LLM models, avoiding the misuse. Oh, yes, and that's how I talk about that. You need to kind of working with the content safeties. You need to work with some kind of uh, the protections around the generative AI, that people might ask only a sensible questions, not any questions that you would like to ask. That can be protected by using content safety around the generative AI application. Yes, it can be. You can definitely avoid the misuse, like you should not use a generative AI to tell how to kill a people, because that prompt is not going to take by the generative AI LLM to respond it, because that will come under the kind of content safety. So this is not the content the generative AI is expecting from the end user, so that could be eliminated from the pipeline. So this is the kind of giant we can definitely do and work around and implementing a lot of tools, a lot of services. Specifically, if you get onto the cloud, you will get to see a lot many service around the generative AI to do all kind of protections. So openai.com is not accessible due to security reasons. So how? Okay, so that is maybe the problem if you are trying to access from your organization. So you have to go to often free internet. You will be able to access this. And that is the answer for Omkar. Uh, because you might not able to access due to your corporate firewall. So you need an open internet connection. You will be able to access. When can you find a base LLM? Do you need oh yes, of course, like there are some LLM is being given to free, like when I'm using an OpenAI, GPT 3.5 is free, but you don't get GPT-4 free or GPT-4o free, so you have to buy them. So it is vendor to vendor, so you have to explore that, but yes, those will be free, that it will come with a limited kind of limited the functionalities or limited the knowledge. So if you want to get more, so you need to buy the paid version of LLM models. Open okay, so the same one. So can't you use this serving, right? All right. So Mrityunjay is asking is what programming language we need to get trained with. Mainly, see if you in the field of artificial intelligence, better you need to get to the Python because the Python has a lot of ready-made libraries aligned with artificial intelligence capabilities, aligned with different models from the deep learning or machine learning going into the Gen AI. In fact, your lang chains and the semantic kernels, what we talked about some time back, this is also strongly coupled with Python. So Python would be the right one going with. I guess perfect. If anyone not getting correct desired
Navajyoti,
out.
you can read the question of Pranjal
Yeah.
Divyanshu. If anyone are not getting correct or desired outcome from ChatGPT, one should opt for fine tuning or any other better mechanism.
Yes. All right. Pranjali said, if anyone not getting correct, and okay, so I got it. Okay. So no, fine tuning is not about, see, fine tuning is always will address the problem that you are talking about because you are asking getting correct in the sense like what you are asking. So if you're saying that, okay, what is the population of India? If your LLM is going to give you an answer according to my knowledge from the 2023 because that LLM was trained at that point in time. He said the population of India is this. So that is you have to go by the limitation of that particular LLM. So now I want the populations today, like in today's context, like from the June 2024. So is there any source from where I can get the population? So in that case, of course, you need to do the fine tuning. You need to do the data grounding that you can pump the latest populations of India's, which was not known to the LLM while I was asking these questions. You can do that. I'm just giving an example, or it could be fit into your own domain also. Suppose you launch a particular product and you need to know about that particular product, but LLM was not known about the product. Then you have to do the fine tuning or data grounding, the two options that I talked about. Yes, it will definitely help by getting into the fine tuning or, but at the same time, you must see that if you're talking about in general, then you have to go by the version of this LLM when this LLM was created, because that LLM would be limited with the knowledge from that point in time when it was created, when it was basically trained. So if I talking about the LLM which is latest, that will try to give you the latest information always. But on top of that, also you can do the fine tuning and data grounding to include the latest informations on top of the LLM always. All right, so I think all good at this moment. Hope that everybody got the answer. So what I have given, but yes, all good from my side at this moment. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah. Thanks, Navajyoti. Thanks for your time. Thanks,
Right.
everyone. Hope you have understood the importance of generative AI. And though Navajyoti has tried to take lot of use cases to make you understand about the generative AI, so you can really start your journey with generative AI, and it is long way to go. Yeah. Thank you so
Okay.
much once again. Have a nice evening.